She's the now 16-year-old Swedish school student who started a worldwide movement of school student strikes and protests demanding action on climate change. At the IPCC conference in Poland, she said, "For 25 years, countless people have come to the UN climate conferences begging our world leaders to stop emissions, and clearly that has not worked as emissions are continuing to rise. So I will not beg the world leaders to care for our future. I will instead let them know change is coming, whether they like it or not." That urgency for action, that recognition that we cannot rely on convincing those in power to do what is necessary, is absolutely correct. It's perhaps why Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil's groupings in the European Parliament have blocked her from speaking to that Parliament this week. The latest IPCC report warned that we have 12 years to avoid global warming going over 1.5 degrees. After that, another half a degree would have devastating consequences. Sea level rise is affecting 10 million people, 99% of coral being destroyed, many insects being wiped out. And the truth is, at the current level of commitments, which are not even being kept, they'd result in a 3-degree rise. And in terms of what is actually happening, we're heading towards a 4 to 5 degree increase in temperature, making very large parts of the Earth uninhabitable. That's why young people have taken the lead, with over 300 cities seeing school student strikes and hundreds of thousands on the streets in Belgium, the Netherlands, Australia, Sweden, Germany and elsewhere. Now, the 15th of March has been named as the date for a global school student strike action, and school students in Ireland will hopefully join in large numbers. And the contrast of those young people with the inaction of the world's leaders could not be starker. Not just with the climate change deniers like Trump, but with those like you, Taoiseach, those who acknowledge climate change exists, those that acknowledge the role of human society in it, but don't want to do anything about it. With the result that Ireland is the second worst in the EU in terms of meeting climate change targets, and that, according to the SEIA today, we're the third worst in the EU for meeting the renewable energy targets. The reason for this inaction is clear. It's because establishment politicians represent big business. For example, the 90 corporations responsible for 63% of cumulative global emissions. The oil, gas and big agribusiness companies pursuing their own maximisation of profit. A mass movement on climate change is needed. The school students should be joined by others, in particular the trade unions, demanding investment in green jobs, for an eco-socialist programme centrally based on taking control of the economy out of the hands of the polluters and profiteers and into the democratic control of the public to enable the rapid and just transition that we need. And so I have two questions for you, Taoiseach. Firstly, will you listen to the school students as they strike on the 15th of March? And secondly, will you agree that, given that transport is the second biggest emitting sector of the economy, that we need radical action to get people out of cars? That therefore the state should invest in properly funded public transport, and more than that, it should make public transport free, as has already happened in Estonia, Luxembourg and 100 cities around the world.
Taoiseach.
Thanks, Deputy, for raising the very important issue of climate change here today in the Chamber. To answer your first question, the answer is yes, of course I will listen, and I do listen. And secondly, yes, we do need to invest in public transport. And among the actions that we're taking, for example, from the middle of this year, Dublin Bus and Bus Éireann in the cities will no longer, Dublin Bus and Bus Éireann in the other cities will no longer purchase any high-emission vehicles. They'll all be no-emission or low-emission vehicles. And as you'll be aware, we have proposals and are implementing proposals for major investments in public transport through projects like Bus Connect, for example, Metro and so on, and I hope you'll be supportive of all of those. I've heard Greta's speech. I think the fact that young people are taking action, are protesting, are going to strike or take a break from school and strike from school on the 15th of March is a good thing. I think it's welcome. I don't see it as you see it, as a party political thing. I think it's quite different, and I've heard what they've had to say. These are young people standing up to adults. These are kids, these are students, these are pupils who are saying to all of the adults, all of us, in all parties, to get our act together and to do more when it comes to climate change, because it's their future that's in jeopardy. And that's why I support what they're doing, and it's why I think we all need to listen to what they're saying to us. And among the people who need to listen are people in socialist parties like yours, who are climate tax deniers, who say that and deny the fact that a carbon tax and a climate charge has to be part of the solution to climate change. We all know that a carbon charge won't solve climate change on its own, but we all equally know, and the science tells us this, that without it we can't achieve our objectives. It has to be part of the solution, and that's why I'd ask you to listen to these students, listen to what they're saying, listen to why they say your policy on carbon charging is wrong. Ask them what they think on that. Do.
Firstly, I'd say it's great that the Taoiseach is saying he supports the school student strikes on the 15th of March. I'd say now school students all across the country should take that as a green light to walk out Friday week in protest against climate inaction. That's what a school student strike is about. The government has said that they support you. And if that isn't just to be a patronising pat on the back, well then it'll be support and defence of those rights of school students who precisely are protesting for their future and for the future of humanity as a whole. It's absolutely not a narrow party political issue, I agree. But I'd say the system and the policies that you defend are incompatible with dealing with climate change. An economy that continues to be based on the drive for profit of individual companies which treat nature and the damage to nature as an externality cannot deliver the rapid change that we need in the economy. It needs a democratically planned economy, and that's why we need eco-socialist policies. Secondly, this is using climate change as a greenwashing exercise to try and introduce more regressive taxation will not wash with people whatsoever, because they know that the polluters are precisely the top companies responsible for 63% of the emissions.
Thank you,
and I'll return to the actual question that I asked, and I would ask the Taoiseach for an answer as opposed to posing questions back to me. Free public transport, Taoiseach. It would make a huge impact on emissions, the second biggest sector in this country. It would only cost 600 million euros, the same as the amount of fines that Ireland could be facing on an annual basis from next year. So if the government is serious about listening to the students, will they give a commitment to invest in properly funded, properly paid for the workers, proper conditions, but also free public transport?
Taoiseach.
Thanks, Ceann Comhairle. No, Deputy, we're not going to introduce free public transport. Much of our public transport, particularly at peak times, is already at capacity. So making it free won't enable any more people to take public transport. So instead of using 600 million euros to make public transport free, we should use that 600 million euros to invest in public transport, to increase capacity, to have more buses, more trains, more frequently, to invest in rural transport and rural public transport as well, so that more people use it, not just so it becomes free. Because the solution to all our problems isn't just tax everything and make it free. It's actually improving the quality of our services, and that includes transport. But to say what I said earlier, I'm inspired and enthused by the fact that young people, that students, that school pupils are taking a real interest in climate action, that they're going to protest, and that they're putting it up to all of us, in all parties, all adults, to do more when it comes to climate action. And I hear that and I'm listening to it. But I ask you to listen to it too, because socialists are no friends of the environment. Look how you oppose water metering and water charges. Look how you now deny that a carbon tax is part of the solution to climate change. You listen to those students too. You ask them what they think about water conservation, what they think about carbon tax, and don't tell them what you think they should think.